Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So we are back on Careyberry and today I am doing my November wrap up. It is the last day of November and I have my Christmas tree up, which I'm really happy about because I just feel really festive at the moment. So I've read quite a few books this month. I've read way more than I actually planned to, because I knew I'd be really busy, like going into school, like doing loads, but somehow I've managed to read a lot. So let's get started. So the first book I managed to read this month, I started for two things. So this month, although it feels like a lifetime ago, I started participating in the 1000 Daughters Readathon, which was hosted by Meg from Meg with Books, Tasmin from Tea Books and Tasmin, and Emma from Drinking by My Shelf. But I was also taking part in the #Tolkien Along hosted by Beth from Books Nest, Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction, and Lauren from Fiction Tea on Instagram. So the first thing I did was read The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is the second book in the Lord of the Rings. And yeah, so this was for the prompt That's History from Meg's channel, because like you could interpret it as being something that's so like iconic within a genre, so I was like Lord of the Rings kind of works for that because of fantasy. So I started with this, and yeah, I actually really liked it. So I didn't like the first book in the Lord of the Rings as much, but this one I really liked, and I think that is because the first half of the book does not feature Frodo at all, and I loved that. So yeah, I really liked that. I liked kind of focusing more on the hobbits and what the Ents were up to, and I really loved that whole journey. Like when it got to the end where Frodo kind of reappeared, I was a bit more disappointed and I was like, oh, I don't really like this. But then the final chapter as well in this, I was so hooked. Like, I don't know why, like I was just so engaged with it and I could not put it down. Like it just took me by surprise, and I think that's because I also really love Sam's character. So yeah, I think this was a really good one. I really loved this compared to The Fellowship. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars. I don't really know what else to say about it because it feels like so long ago that I read it. It's the same kind of writing as The Fellowship. Really beautiful descriptions. Tolkien just loves his descriptiveness. That is kind of an issue with it as well, because at times the imagery is like perfect and it really sets the scene, but then at other times the imagery is just too much. There's just too much and I'm like, stop, I don't care anymore. But yeah, I was actually really liking this, even though the page numbers did confuse me at first and I couldn't actually log it on my Goodreads until I'd finished it, because it carries on from the pages in the first book. So you're straight in at like page 400 or whatever it is. And then when I was trying to update my Goodreads, I just put the page number in without thinking and it was like, you finished the book, and I was like, no I haven't. So yeah, I had to do some like maths to figure out how many pages I was in, and then I just gave up and just didn't update it until I finished it. So the next book I read on my Kindle, and that was Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And I read that for the second prompt in the 1000 Daughters Readathon, which I'm back for. So because Before the Coffee Gets Cold is about time travel, I figured that was a really fitting prompt, and I really liked it. I have like some issues with the novel. It was more kind of like a play almost, like it was very, I don't know, I really don't know how to describe it, but I did really enjoy it. It's a really weird book, because it's kind of like, at times it feels like the characters and the setting are more like stage instructions, but it was really enjoyable. It made me really sad. I almost ended up crying on the train while I was reading this, which was really difficult because like the train was really busy, and there was one point where I was reading it and I was just looking up, like the tears in my eyes, like I can't cry, I can't cry, I can't cry. But then I was sniffing loads and I didn't want people to think I had COVID because it was a really busy train and it was just a bit of a nightmare. But I really liked the book. So I didn't like the way that the characters were introduced, because I found it really hard to keep track of because it was quite quick paced in a way, but I absolutely adored the concept. Some parts of the execution weren't the best, but at the same time I really did like the stories. So yeah, I actually can't wait for the sequel. I gave this one 5 stars, but as I'm talking about it I'm wondering if I shouldn't have, because I'm finding my ratings like now going all weird. But I did really enjoy it at the time I read it. Okay, and then the next book I read was for the 1000 Doors Readathon, and I got it from Tasman's prompt, which was Marvel. And this really had me stumped for a while. I had no idea what to read and I was just looking at my bookshelf like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. But then I saw this book that I had put at the bottom because I didn't think I was ever gonna read it. I got it at university when I was at my graduation as a gift. Like everyone got one and they were all on our seats from the uni. And it's Greta Thunberg's No One Is Too Small to Make a Difference. So I decided to read this one because I saw the title and immediately thought of Groot, because I was thinking of Marvel. So yeah, I just decided to read that, and it's super short and I figured it counts towards my Goodreads goal, and I'm trying to get to 100 before the end of the year. So I read this. I liked it. I mean, climate change is a really important subject and it's one I want to think more about, and I think it was interesting. I want to do more research on it, but it was also incredibly repetitive because it is just Greta Thunberg's speeches, which like you can tell have the same sound bites in them. So a lot of the time I was like, oh, I've already read this, I've already read this, I've already heard her say this. But it is really interesting and she's really passionate about it, and it's something I do want to kind of think about more. So yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, I gave that one 4 stars. The next book I read was also for the 1000 Doors Readathon, and that was for Meg's prompt, which is An Acquired Taste. So this prompt actually had me a little stumped for a while as well, because I had no idea what to read, because I was thinking a book that not everyone likes, that I've heard like mixed reviews for, and some of the books on my shelf I know that everyone's loved. Some of them I haven't heard anyone talk about. So I really didn't know what to choose until I saw Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, because I know that some people really don't like this book, or just don't like get the hype around it. Like I think Ceres from Library of Ceres isn't 100% fond of it, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go with this one, because I knew it'd be quite an easy read as well. Like it's a bit chunky, but it is like, it's quite easy to read and it's multimedia, so it was quite quick. Yeah, so immediately like it's kind of an enemies to lovers, where the Prince of the UK and the first son of the United States fall in love with each other. And at first they hate each other. I thought that the reason they hated each other was a bit unrealistic. I didn't really get it until later on in the book, but it still just didn't, like, I would have liked for them to have not liked each other for a better reason. I did really like the banter in this. I thought it was really funny, like the way they interacted with each other. I thought it was quite realistic, which was quite funny. And it really grew on me as time went on. Yeah, it was a really weird one. Like I didn't think it matched up to the hype necessarily, but at the same time I didn't hate it. So like it was an okay read. It was pretty easy to read, it passed the time well, kind of thing. And I gave that, yeah, I gave it 4 stars, so And I moved on to prompt 5, which was the final prompt for the 5,000 Doors Readathon, and I got to Joel from Fictional Fates video, and his prompt was weapons. So for this you could interpret it as like someone being a weapon, or a book that had a weapon like themed, or a book that had a weapon on the cover. So for this I chose The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern because there is a sword on the spine, and I knew I really wanted to read this. Like, I bought it because it looked pretty and the blurb intrigued me, but then I started reading it and I literally made a note, hold on. I literally wrote in my reading journal in all caps, like, I love the first chapter. Like, I was not far in when I realised this was going to be my favourite book. When I was reading it, it was just written so well. Like, it's truly like immersive and I just couldn't put it down. I loved it so much. I just really don't know what to say about it. Like, when I stopped reading it, like, I put it down and I just hugged it because I was like, this is my favourite book. Like, this is it. When people have asked me before, like, what's your favourite book, I've always really struggled because I've never properly had one that I'm like, this is my favourite. Or like, there have been books that I'm like, I really like them but I wouldn't class them as a favourite, if that makes sense. But then I read this and I was like, no, this is my favourite. The writing was just so beautiful, and all the stories and how they linked together, I just really loved it. And I just love how gradual some of it was as well, like how we learn things over time and how everything linked together. And then of course it mentioned Persephone, which I was like, this book is made for me. Like, it's beautifully written, I love all the stories in it, I love the writing, I love the language, I love the way, like, there's so much world building thought out with like the rituals and stuff. And then it mentioned Persephone and I was like, I'm sold. This is it for me. So yeah, I just, I find it so hard to review books that I really like because my thoughts are just incoherent. I'm just like, I love this, it's beautiful, and that's like all I can say. But yes, read this. If you haven't read it, just read it, okay? Just read it, it's so good. Oh yeah, I rated that 5 stars. Okay, the next book I read, I got from the library, and that was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, because I bought Take a Hint, Danny Brown, but for some reason it just completely skipped me by that Chloe Brown was the first in the series. So I bought it, got here, and then I was like, wait, there's one before? So I got that from the library and I had to wait for it. But I got that and I really liked it. I didn't expect it to be as steamy as it was. So I was just sitting there on the train, and then like I turned a page and I was like, okay. Like, I was sitting in front of this child and I was like, I cannot read this on the train. This is so bad. Like, not bad, but I just wasn't expecting it. It really took me by surprise. Yeah, so I thought the relationships that were portrayed were really healthy, and I really loved to see that. There was a lot of, like, obviously there was the normal like miscommunication that you get in romance, but a lot of the time there was actually really good communication, which I really liked. I thought that scenes within it were really like genuinely cute. Like, you know, when you're reading something you've just got a grin on your face because you're like, this is adorable. That was me for a lot of it. I really liked the banter between them as well, and like, I think Chloe Brown's character was quite relatable in some ways to me. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. One thing I didn't like though was Annie's character. So Chloe like saves this cat and then finds out that it's got an owner, gives it back to the owner, and then like kind of befriends her, and they go out once and then like never again. and she's mentioned like later on in the book, but there's no real like closure. It's like she's almost forgotten about, which is weird because like it seemed like she was gonna be this important character once they'd met up for coffee. It was like, oh, Chloe's actually gonna have friends now, and then she was just like not mentioned in any like meaningful way again. And I just found that really weird. Like it was almost like she was just there to serve the Bechdel test and then go, which like, yeah, I just found that really strange. So that was like my one kind of negative takeaway from it. So I gave that 4 stars. Okay, so the next book I read was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So I've had this on my shelf for ages, and it's been one of those books that I've known that I'm going to love, and it's really made me put it off because I've been so scared that like, what if I don't love it, or I don't know, it just like, I know I'm gonna love it so much that I just don't want to read it because I know that I won't have that experience of reading it for the first time again. But shock, I loved it. So The Midnight Library is essentially about a woman who is between life and death, and she's like going over all of those what if questions, like what if I'd done this, what if I'd done this, and stuff like that. And she gets to see all of the ways that her life would be different if she'd chosen like one different thing. And I love that concept because as an overthinker, I am someone who's constantly like, what if I'd done this, what if I'd done this, what if I'd done this. And I just loved like seeing the different directions her life would have taken, and the kind of like themes of like mental health and happiness and what we value throughout it, which was really, really interesting. Matt Haig is a brilliant writer. I read How to Stop Time by him last year and I loved it. So yeah, I knew I was gonna love this. I've got Notes on a Nervous Planet and I need to read that by him as well. But yeah, it's just, the writing in this was beautiful. It made me cry like 10 pages in. Yeah, this was one, it's quite short, but again, I couldn't put it down. So yeah. And then next, obviously The Burning God was released this month. So I read the Drowning Faith chapters by R.F. Kuang, and I'm including it in my wrap up because although there were only 15 pages, it's on Goodreads, so it counts towards my Goodreads goal, which means it counts towards 100 books this year. So it's being included. Yeah, there's not much to say on them, because obviously there's only 15 pages, and I'm very aware that my boyfriend is sitting in the room and I don't want to spoil him for the series because I'm trying to get him to read it. No, do not leave. So I also don't want to spoil you guys if you haven't read The Poppy War yet, which, what are you doing? We've gone over this, you need to read it. So yeah, they were really good. I was really emotional and I loved to see certain scenes from a different perspective and a different viewpoint, and I just loved the way that R.F. Kuang writes, so it was a really nice kind of way to wrap up some of the trilogy. So yeah, also some super emotional quotes in that. Whew. And then next I read another book on my Kindle. So this year I have fallen in love with Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing, and so I read Forever Interrupted on my Kindle by her, and yeah, I've been going through her backlog because I loved Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones, and so I've been working my way through like her older books, but I didn't love this one. Like I didn't really feel sad for the character, like there was no kind of emotional attachment or investment, so yeah, I just didn't feel sad for her. A lot of the time, like, I just didn't get it. I think that was a main issue. So the main character, I've forgotten her name. I've actually forgotten her name. Was it Ellie? Maybe. But she essentially gets married really quickly to this guy, and then he dies, like 8 days after their wedding, but his mum doesn't know that they were married, and I just, yeah, I found it really strange. I felt like I couldn't relate to it. Like, a lot of the time I was just going, why? The kind of explanations for why the mum didn't know, I didn't get, and I was like, this just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, I thought that some aspects of it were really good, but on the whole I just didn't love it. I thought the storytelling was okay, and as time went on it did again grow on me. I thought that some of the messages in it were really nice, especially like towards the end when the bonds between different characters were growing stronger. I did actually really enjoy that, and I thought that kind of brought the book back a bit, because when I first started it I was like, yeah, I don't like this, I just wasn't feeling it, but towards the end it did kind of come back for me. Yeah, some moments were actually quite predictable, but there was one moment that actually made me laugh. Like, so she punches this guy and I just found it really funny because it was quite out of character, but it was like a hilarious moment to me. So I gave Forever Interrupted 3 stars? Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. And then the next book I read was by Elizabeth Acevedo. So I read With the Fire on High by her over the summer, and I just adored it. It's a beautiful, beautiful book, and I just loved her writing. So recently I have seen this book around a lot. It's been on like the kind of posters when I'm at the train station, and then I've seen loads of people on Bookstagram talk about it. Most recently I think I saw Esme talk about it from Esme at Girl Power, and that is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I read that on my Kindle as well. And it's a beautiful book. It's written in verse, and I found it a really quick read, and essentially it's about 2 girls who find out they're sisters after their father dies in a plane crash, and one lives in the Dominican Republic and one lives in New York, and it's kind of them coming to terms with like everything that's been going on in their family that they weren't aware of, and kind of a commentary on the differences in their lives and the similarities between them, and like the things that they go through. So yeah, I found that really, really interesting, really liked it. I gave that 4 stars. I was quite happy with how it ended, and I thought the teenage portrayal was really good, but it just wasn't a 5-star to me, and I'm not sure why. And then I read Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. So I liked this more than Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I think I was just more personally invested in the relationship between Danny and Zaf. I just really liked them as characters. It was a lot less steamier as well. Like, I feel like Get a Life, Chloe Brown, like it was very quickly quite steamy, whereas this one took a lot longer time, and I actually really liked that. So yeah, I really thought this was quite cute. The mental health rep was really great as well, and quite realistic, and I really liked that. The relationship was really healthy, like the communication was good, and yeah, I just really loved the messages of it. I don't know, I really loved this one. But again, I rated it 4 stars and not 5. Yeah, I'm not sure why. I found this one really funny, like genuinely really funny, especially when the boys that Zaf like trains found out that he had a girl. Like, it was just so funny the way Talia Hibbert described it, because it's so realistic to teenage boys. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I really can't wait for Act Your Age Eve Brown to come out, because I can't wait to see how it differs from the other 2, because they're both quite similar but they're also very different, so I'm quite excited for that. And finally, I didn't know whether to include this in my November or December, because I have started Gingerbread by Helen Oyemi. I'm only about 111 pages in, but I'm not loving it so far. I just find it really confusing. I'm not really sure what's going on. Like on the cover it does say a wildly imagined, head-spinning, deeply intelligent novel. And head-spinning is right because I could not tell you what is happening. It's like, it's got elements of magical realism, but I'm just so confused by it and by all the new characters that are introduced and by what's going on. Like, I feel like there's some things that I'm missing, and I'm hoping that they'll come to light later on in the book, but at the moment they're not, and I'm just confused and it's making me want to DNF it. But at the same time I really want to get to 100, so I'm like, I can't DNF it. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think it's really well written, but it's also very confusing, so it's a mixed one. Hopefully by the time we get to like my December wrap up, I'll know what I'm talking about with it. But that is it for my November wrap up. So I think that's like 11 books this month, I think. That sounds about right. But thank you for watching. What have you guys read this month? Have you read any of the books that I've read, and did you kind of share similar thoughts to me? Yeah, just let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye guys.